Welcome back. I'm Melissa
kind of
Harris
new
here.
way of suppressing the vote by actually suppressing registration?
Seems like we're playing like a game of whack-a-mole right now when it comes to voter suppression, right? I mean, every time we whack down something like a voter ID law, some new tactic pops up. And that's really why the Voting Rights Act was passed in the first place in 1965. So barriers to registration and restrictions on voter registration drives, right? What Texas is doing, other states have tried similar things before. So Florida, before the 2012 election, right, they imposed this 48-hour deadline for you to return voter registration forms. You'd be fined $50 per form per day late, right? I was representing the Okaloosa branch of the NAACP in 2012. They got in trouble for returning 2 forms 4 hours late. Here's what happened.
Wow, like a rental car.
Right. Yeah. So they collected them on Sunday morning. They returned them on Tuesday afternoon. Now, why didn't they return them on Monday, right? Monday was MLK Day.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't get 24 hours of tolling for that. It was really, really, really amazing.
No, all right, so I
Cover places like, you know, what we've seen in Wisconsin and back to Texas again.
Well, the dysfunction of this Congress is well known, right? Everyone talks about how this Congress can't get anything done. But here's what we know about the Voting Rights Act and in recent history in Congress, right? Passed 98-0 in the Senate. It passed 390 to 33 votes in 2006. Many of those members are still in Congress. And we're confident that if we can get to a floor vote, right, and these people have to put their names forward as to whether or not they support the Voting Rights Act or not, that we can get it passed. The question is, can we get the process started? Because we haven't had a hearing yet. So we need to get a hearing on the VRA, and we need to get it soon for there to be any action before the session's over.
Great. Everybody stay with us. Zach, I wanted to ask, tell me about your level of confidence about the kinds of arguments you're making here to this judge.
We're really confident about this case. Ohio, there's a history here that's really relevant, right? Because we're not arguing that every state in the country has to have X number of days of early voting or something like that. What we're arguing is that there's a history in Ohio. 2004, as you mentioned, right? People waited in line 7, 8, 9 hours to cast a ballot. How did they try to address that? Early voting, to try to take the pressure off of Election Day, right? The problem, I think, is it worked too well.
It worked, yeah.
Right? You didn't have those same kinds of problems with lines in 2006 and 2008. And in 2008, you had record turnout by African Americans and other people of color and young voters in Ohio. And then all of a sudden, repeated efforts to cut back on early voting in the Ohio legislature. A bill in 2010 that failed, a bill in 2011 that they did manage to get through and then repealed because they were worried about whether or not there would be a referendum on it. But then the Secretary of State got rid of the last 3 days of early voting before the 2012 election, blocked by a federal court from doing that. And now they're coming back and trying to get rid of the last 2 days of early voting and the first week of it, right? So there's a history here. I think people understand that this is just repetitive attempts to try to push us back towards 2004, and we're very confident about our argument.
All right, so part of what I find so useful about the two, and well, it's just their implicit attitudes. They can't really be held accountable.
Yeah, so this is something really interesting that I've been talking about with colleagues and with some law professors about, right? Because there's this line of cases that say that the only kinds of discrimination that are unlawful or unconstitutional are this express, intentional discrimination. I hate you because of your race. I'm going to treat you differently, right? But from my perspective, what the Constitution prohibits is being treated differently because of your race, right? So it doesn't matter as a victim of discrimination whether you do it intentionally or if you do it because of implicit bias. Either way, I've been discriminated against. It should be just as unconstitutional from my perspective.
So it's a question then of looking at the role of the victim of the